Hi everybody, and welcome to this tutorial where we are going to draw a swan with a simple charcoal pencil. You can see it here. It's the Wolf's Carbon 6B, and I'm drawing on the Ami newsprint paper, which is very cheap indeed but very strong. Now what I first notice, of course, is the surface of the water. So it's kind of an horizon, maybe, but well, most of all it's the surface, and this swan is landing up on the surface and it's stirring the water around. And what I want to know is where the head is going to be positioned within the area of drawing. Now from the left side to the line that is a plump line, that's 7 centimeters, and then I point out 6.5 centimeters, and that's exactly where that lump on the nose is going to be. So I have to start somewhere, and you can see here its beak is also open. And there's a lot of action going on. Now this is the tip of the upper lip or lid of the beak. I'm not sure how that's called. And then from underneath that is coming the lower lid of the beak. So that's something that I want to have in place before I start positioning all of the swan around this. And within this composition, the head is very important. It's kind of in the center, just out of center. And what is also important is the direction of the long neck. And swans have those magnificent long necks, and it's very gracious. And here you can see the dent in the left wing, which is just above the tip of the nose of the beak, I mean. And then there's a lot of movement going on. So I will fast forward that part, but the actual drawing in real time can be found, of course, on my Patreon page. Same as the reference picture, of course, and all the materials. So you can find that there if you want to support me. Now there's a lot of action, as I was telling, and the wings are flapping around. So I'm just pointing out the directions of the feathers, and I point out a little bit of the gray values that are within this swan. And then what is very important, maybe just as important as the actual swan itself, and that is the reflection in the water. Now, if you are curious about drawing like a painter and drawing with charcoal, then you really want to stick around, because I'm going to give you a huge amount of tips and tricks for drawing with charcoal on the Ami newsprint paper. Now I've drawn out the reflection, and there's also a lot of splashy water just left and right next to the swan. You can see it here. There's a lot of water splashes on the right side of the swan, so I just point those out a little bit by drawing in little ellipses. And this is my pastel crayon. It's a compressed pastel. It's just the black. It's a Faber-Castell. And of course the swan is in a very dark surrounding. But the Ami newsprint paper, it's it's not quite white, but it's light, of course. So what I need to do now is to well, chalk in with that black pastel the whole surrounding of this swan. And because I'm laying the crayon flat on the surface, in that way I can really quickly darken up the surrounding of this swan. If I had to do that all with the Wolf's Carbon charcoal pencil, then it would take a lot of time. But what I want to get is a lot of pigments onto the Ami newsprint paper. Then I take a big brush. It's clean and it's dry, and I simply start pushing in with all my might. I'm pushing in the pigments of the pastel crayon into the Ami newsprint paper. And my drawing will stay visual, so you do not have to be afraid that your drawing will disappear because of the brush. It will not. And what I can do then is draw in an extra layer around the swan, which is a little bit more detailed. Now this is my Koh I Noor the Koh I Noor pencil eraser. Now this is an eraser which is well, as the name is saying already, it's in a pencil, and you can actually sharpen it with the pencil eraser, and in that way you always have a very sharp eraser around. And I combine this with the black Wolf's Carbon charcoal pencil. So I'm using the pencil eraser like some kind of a brush, if you want, and I can just erase in the lights, the highlights that are on the feathers of the swan. Now the beak was, because of brushing, it tends to get a little bit lighter, and you can easily go back in with your charcoal pencil and then put back in the details. Just go over your actual drawing and just draw back the details back in. It's no problem at all. And the newsprint paper is very strong indeed, so it can endure a lot of pressure and a lot of layers. So that's why I always use the Ami newsprint paper as a pre-study. So this is just a pre-study. It's a sketch for a colored drawing that I want to do with the pastel pencils and a little bit of pan pastels. But before grabbing my expensive paper, I first take the Ami newsprint paper. Now I will demonstrate. I'm pointing out where the left wing is ending, and then I simply go over the dark area with the charcoal pencil again, because the background needs to be all pinch black. And the easiest way, of course, to draw this one is to take black paper. That's an option, but because this is just my sketch, I simply draw in the background as black as I can, and then I push it back in again with the brush, and in that way it I can just push in little details with the pencil eraser. It's my Koh I Noor. I love it. I always have that pencil eraser around. I use it for all kinds of things, but I mostly use the eraser as a drawing tool. So not for correcting, but simply for drawing these painterly effects. Now here in front of the swan on the left side, there's a lot of contrast too. So I go back in again with the charcoal pencil, and I need to get those splashes in because he's landing on the surface of the water, and I want to get that feel in my fingertips, so that's why I'm using this technique in particular. And here I put in some highlights for the little splashes that are popping from the swan. And well, once I'm happy with where everything is about standing, it's not perfect of course, but I do have that action now going on. It's dynamic, and I love the composition. So here I'm simply pushing in a little bit of extra detail for the front of the swan itself. The wings I keep as blurry as possible because they are in full motion. And underneath the swan, of course, there's a dark shadow, and most importantly, there is a reflection in the water. Now, of course, it's important to get that swan well in the good movement, if you want, but the water underneath the swan, within this composition, is just as important as the swan itself, because well, it's the same spacious room that I have underneath the swan, and this this water is what makes this composition very, very beautiful in particular. So I pay just as much as attention to this reflection as I do to the actual swan itself, because they need to well, come together and make it so dynamic. Here I'm going to put back the detail in the head of the swan itself, and I'm also using the pencil eraser for the highlight reflections on the surface of the water. Now here underneath the swan itself, I put in the extra deep shadows, and in this way the swan is popping off the drawing sheet. So this is an actual beautiful way of drawing. I love it, and I hope you will give it a try, and maybe I will see you on my Patreon page so you can see the real time in action here. So a very happy new year, everybody, and I will see you again in the next tutorial. Take care.